For any of you who are sick, who have chronic illnesses, fatigue, pain all the time, I can understand where you're coming from. I experienced it to a significant degree when I was sick. The pain was so bad so much of the time with the fibromyalgia. I couldn't hold anything in my hand. Sometimes my husband would have to help feed me because my hands hurt so bad I couldn't hold the fork. My feet hurt so bad I couldn't walk on them. The pain was so excruciating. And then throughout, just trying to lay in one position was nearly impossible. Turning was just excruciatingly painful. Being able to carry on a conversation with somebody was very, very challenging. Here I have a master's degree. At the time I had one master's degree, and it was so hard for me to carry on a conversation with somebody. A lot of times I would make sure that my husband was with me all the time so he could translate, because words would not come out the way that they were supposed to. I couldn't work at all anymore because the brain fog was so bad. The pain was also so intense it was hard for me to move, to get up, just to function like a regular human being has to do on a daily basis. Hi, my name is Linda Potts, and I would like to tell you my story. I'm a registered nurse and have been since 1979. It's been a long time. My story begins in 1998 when I suddenly became very ill. Prior to that time, I had excellent health. I was very fortunate to be raised in a family that believed in eating very healthfully. We exercised all the time, got the amount of rest that we needed, drank water regularly. We did all those great things. So for 40 plus years, I was very, very healthy. So when I suddenly became ill, it was very shocking to me because I had not experienced illness even close to this before. The pain that I experienced was severe, sharp pains in my right abdominal area. And I told my husband at the time, my boyfriend, that if I hadn't known any better, I would think that I was having a gallbladder attack. But I didn't eat fried fatty foods or eat things that weren't good for me. So it was extremely baffling to me. The pain was so severe, I doubled over and actually landed on the floor. He wanted to take me to the emergency room, but having been an emergency room nurse for many years and know how that process works, I declined the offer and said that I would just wait till I went to work the next morning. By the time I got to work the next morning, the pain had continued to intensify. It got very bad. Actually, the director of nursing met me at the door with a wheelchair, and from that point on I was in a wheelchair. I went straight down to a radiology department, and the radiologist was a friend of mine, and she took me through all the x-rays at that time, and I had seen one of the emergency room doctors who was a friend of mine, and we were trying to determine what was going on. Following all the x-rays, the radiologist came to me and said, "Linda, I don't know what the problem is. All I can tell you is everything inside of you is totally inflamed. Every organ that you have internally is totally inflamed, and we don't know the reason for it." That was the beginning of my very, very long road to being ill. I ended up being ill for 6 years. For the first 4 years, I went to my family physician and, of course, several of the doctors at the hospital that I had professional relationships with, and each one of them tried to determine what was wrong. Bottom line is, I was diagnosed with chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, and eventually Lyme disease. My family physician thought initially that I had Lyme disease, and he did the blood work, and it came back negative, and he said, most of the tests that are done for Lyme do come back negative, but I don't believe that because of the symptoms that you have, so I want to treat you for that anyway. So I was treated with that with a couple courses of antibiotics, but I didn't get better. I just continued to get worse. And as my health declined, my ability to function and work declined. Over the 4-year period of time, I was sent to multiple specialists, neurologist, endocrinologist, you name it, did all kinds of things. And I actually had some testing done at Johns Hopkins as well. there were pulmonary function tests done because I was having so much problem getting, I felt, oxygen exchange. Everything was relatively normal, maybe low normal, but nonetheless everything was normal. And it made it very challenging, of course, for my Western medicine physicians to diagnose me, to figure out what was wrong. There were a few things. I had a MRI, a CAT scan done to try to determine what was going on. I was having migraines. The migraines were probably one of the most torturous symptoms that I had. Because there were times that I would have a migraine on top of a migraine on top of a migraine, and that would last 2-3 weeks at a time. So we had a lot of testing done on my brain and everything to see what was going on, and still pretty much everything was inconclusive. And again, very challenging for my physicians. They were friends of mine, people I had worked with, colleagues for years, and it was very hard for them not to be able to help me. And just seeing my health decline continuously was also very, very frustrating for them. After the 4 years, I talked to my Western medicine physician, my family physician, and I told him that I wanted to try some form of alternative medicine. And my first alternative method that I tried was acupuncture. The acupuncture sessions that I had were very beneficial to begin with. However, they didn't last. The treatment would last for a period of time. Initially, I was going twice a week for an extended period of time, and then once a week. And I would get better for a short period of time, and then I would exhibit all these symptoms all over again. And then it became very frustrating for my acupuncturist to try to determine. He kept saying, I know some of the things that are going on with you as far as Chinese medicine is concerned, but he didn't know what the root cause was. We looked at multiple things over the course of that period of time and still was unable to identify the root cause of my problem. In the meantime, I still continued to communicate with my family physician to let him know what I was doing, what was being found, how I was being helped, all of those things. And I did try multiple things. Some of you who have had chronic illnesses or have chronic illnesses, people are out there wanting to help you, and they make all these suggestions. Oh, try this herb, or try this particular type of product, supplement, because it helps so-and-so. I did that. I tried so many different things over those 6-year period of time that I was sick, and nothing seemed to help me to the point where I could get healthy and then stay healthy. And again, my health just continued to decline. Then a lady from our church recommended that I get a particular type of health screening done. She didn't know too much about it, but she said, you just need to get it done because I know that it will help you. And that's what I did. The name of the screening that I had done at that time was called a bioenergetic health screening. It is based on acupuncture theory, and it deals with the meridians. In acupuncture, they talk about energetic pathways, and it looks at those pathways and the different points that are on those pathways to see where there's energy blockages. And I went and had the screening done, and I was just so impressed with how this screening worked. I had never seen anything like it before. The thing that impressed me the most about it was so black and white, very definitive about what was going on with me in my body and where the energy blockages were, and the different symptoms that I was having correlated with what showed on the screening. I was just really fascinated by this particular type of screening. During that process, it was identified that the root cause for my symptoms was parasites. Now, a lot of people have parasites, and I had been screened for parasites. I had asked my family physician specifically to screen me for that because I had gone on a mission trip about a year before I'd gotten sick, and I thought maybe while I was in Panama I might have picked up something. But nothing showed up on the Western medicine screening, and here it showed up on this particular type of screening. And then I asked her if she could tell me what type of parasites were being shown there. And she said, yes, she could. And she said, they're parasites from Philippines. Does that make any sense to you? And I said, yes, it does. I said, can you tell me about how long I have had them in my body? And she said, it looks like about 25 years or more. And I said, yes, that is true. I had lived in Thailand and visited Philippines when I was a child. And during that period of time, apparently, I had gotten some parasites in my system. And they were identified as parasites from Philippines that I had had in my body for 29 years. Then the question came to be, okay, how could I have them in my body for so long and still be healthy? Because I was healthy for 40-some years, never had any symptoms of any kind of illness prior to this particular day. Actually, it was Super Bowl Sunday in 1998. So when the screening is finished, the initial part of it, the next step is to determine what type of supplements would be best for me at that particular time. And they were identified, and I went home and I did that. Also, it was recommended to me to start eating in a different manner, basically according to my blood type, which I did. It took about 6 weeks before I felt any kind of changes whatsoever. In the years before, I told you multiple people had suggested multiple things to try, and each one of those things I would give 6 weeks to see if they would do any good for me. And so when I had the health screening done, I decided that I would give it 6 weeks. I'm glad that I gave myself that 6-week period of time, because prior to that, the pain was so intense for me from the fibromyalgia that it was very difficult for me to recognize any kind of improvement in my health whatsoever. In that 6 weeks, however, the pain diminished quite significantly. And then when I started going back over that 6-week period of time, I recognized so many things. I was sleeping better. Most nights I was sleeping through the night now. The next thing was my irritable bowel symptoms had diminished significantly and almost totally disappeared. I was able to have a little bit more energy throughout the day, and the symptoms just kept improving like that. And it was wonderful. So then I knew I was on the road to recovery, which was just such an awesome feeling to finally feel like I was actually getting relief. Prior to that, when I was working with just Western medicine docs, it had gotten to the point where they had said, you may have to live like this the rest of your life. And I said, I can't. It had taken away my life. I was very active, did just so many things, physically, all on the go all the time. So when I got sick and I became totally debilitated, the final year of that 6th year, I was actually in bed about 98% of the time. I wasn't able to work anymore. The brain fog was so bad, I couldn't think, I couldn't speak. A lot of times I used words that weren't appropriate, didn't fit in the sentence that I was trying to say, or there would be times that my mind would go blank and I couldn't draw on the words that I knew I needed to fill in. It was a very, very challenging time for me. So during that 6-week process, or when I got to that end of that 6 weeks and I felt better, I knew that I was on the road to recovery, and it felt so good. And because of that, in recognizing what the screening had done, what it had identified, and with the supplemental help that I was getting, it was an eye-opener for me to say, hey, maybe this is something that I can do. So I went and talked to the lady who had first scheduled me for the screening and asked her what would it take to learn how to do this. And so she got me in contact with an individual who began training with me, and then I became certified to do this type of screening. In my practice now, I have upgraded to a different type of equipment. We went from bioenergetic type of equipment to a biofeedback type of equipment. It's a much simpler, easier, and much quicker for someone to be able to be screened on it. And it is such a joy to be able to help other people now. For those of you who are sick or extremely fatigued, tired all the time, in pain all the time, I understand where you are. I have been there myself. It has been a long road, very challenging at times, where the pain was so bad I couldn't function I couldn't walk on my feet for the pain was so bad. I couldn't hold anything in my hands. Sometimes my husband would have to help feed me because I couldn't hold a fork. Just moving around, I moaned and groaned all the time. The extreme tiredness was tiring in itself just from that. But being tired all the time, not being able to function, not being able to think, not being able to speak like one's supposed to be able to. I get that. I've been there. Now my life is very, very different. Yes, sometimes I still have days that are a little rough, but not near to the point where they are debilitating. There are times that I have to still be careful of how much work I do, how much stress I allow in my life, because I can start going back and I'll start getting the little hints of, okay, Linda, you're stressing yourself a little too much, or you're pushing yourself a little bit too much, so I have to back off. But I have my life back. I'm able to function on a daily basis. I started my own business. I do this now as a living, hoping to help more and more people. This is why I feel I am uniquely qualified to help you. I have been there, and there are some times that I am there even now. Not near to the degree that I have been, but I still do experience some tough days, and I have to practice what I preach, which sometimes can be very challenging for those of us who are in the healthcare profession. I hope this helps you get to know me better. I know that we can help you. Please give us a call at Healing Waters Wellness Center. Thank you.